Kia ora, Danica, and welcome to the Conscious Early Learning podcast. Thank you so much for coming on this morning. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing really well, thanks.
It's awesome. So, shall we actually just begin with who you are and what the work is that you do? Have a little intro for our listeners.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Danica, and the work I'm doing a lot at the moment is emotional intelligent parenting, which is something I kind of got into just from being a parent myself. My background's mindfulness, meditation, yoga, and since becoming a parent, I realized they're all great things to have, but I needed a few extra tools to help me navigate situations with big emotions and for my little boy as well. So that's kind of how I got into, emotional intelligent parenting, which has literally changed my life.
It is. It's so life changing when you actually have the knowledge around the brain development and emotional intelligence. So, could you explain what, firstly, like what emotional intelligence is, and then why it really is such a crucial skill for both children and the adults?
Yeah, for sure. So, emotional intelligence is our own ability to understand and identify our emotions. And particularly, emotional intelligence is being able to understand and see other people's emotions as well. So it is a big part of that is also empathy, being able to empathize with other people, not just sort of seeing their emotions and, just shutting it down or walking away. It's being able to really see and hear somebody and have empathy for them as well. And the reason it's so important, it's so crucial because we have emotions for our whole life. They're with us from the beginning right till the end. And if we go through life not understanding our emotions, we're missing out on such a huge part of our being. All emotions are there to give us information, to teach us something. And if we can see them and work with them, it's such a wonderful, empowering thing for ourselves, for our partners, for our family, for our kids. It's really great.
Such a good summary. So, in your experience, what would possibly be some of the challenges that parents, but also educators, because our audience is parents and early childhood teachers, what challenges may they have when it comes to emotional intelligence?
I think there's a couple of things. To be honest, one of the big things is to to really have emotional intelligence. We do need to have our own ability to understand emotions. So if we can't regulate and understand our own emotions, it's very hard to be able to help anyone else understand or hold space for theirs. So I think the first thing is being able to become aware of your own emotions, become very familiar with them, get into the habit of sort of naming to tame them. And then when we start to become very in tune with our own emotions, we can start to become more in tune with others' emotions and help them through their own journey. Another point of that is when, particularly for parents, when you're tired, you're run down, maybe solo parenting, it's very hard to have that resilience and space to be able to have emotional intelligence because you're almost in survival mode, and things just are happening, and it's very hard to control. It's one of those things where it almost has to start with self care, with mindfulness, really taking care of yourself to then allow space for emotional intelligence. Otherwise, it's quite tricky to do.
That's right. It's like the very core of it is having that awareness of your emotions, and that's great if you've got that awareness. But if you're
Mm.
aware that you're constantly stressed out in this like fight or flight mode, it really takes that like radical responsibility to do your own self-care and make sure that it's kind of like not like one big thing that you do every so often, but something that's woven throughout your day in such a way that it's sustainable. And I think that's
Mm.
like a really key piece that you mentioned there, because it's so easy when you're a parent, especially like for the first time. I found it's like my baby is my everything. Like I'm putting them first. I'm doing everything for them. But actually putting them first is putting yourself first. The whole saying, like I know it's so cliche, but like put your own oxygen mask on first and then put them, put it on your child. So yeah, that's like a really good point there.
Mm.
So for parents and early childhood educators who are really new to this work, could you provide some simple everyday practices that can really help them to improve their emotional intelligence, both in themselves and then with the children that they care for as well?
Definitely. I think one of the big things is it's coming back to mindfulness, really. It's starting to just become aware of your automatic reactions. So often in life, we kind of live on autopilot. And when these, big emotions happen or anything happens, really, it's really a vital skill to be able to notice your automatic reaction to that situation, because that's where you can start to make a change. And it starts with just noticing. It might be just, wow, I really want to jump in and just, whip them up and save them from this big meltdown. I want to fix it. And I want to get them back into the happy place. So it's just noticing that that's our habitual response to that situation. Another thing is a really simple one. Just starting to name the emotion to tame it. It's something that we can do for ourselves and for our kids as well. So it's noticing that automatic reaction. It's taking a pause and going, okay, I'm not going to jump in there and try to fix it. And then just sort of assessing and seeing, okay, what is the emotion that my child's feeling? And it might be just saying, I can see you're really disappointed that your block tower just tumbled down, rather than jumping in to fix it straight away, which can be sort of the very common thing to do. So yeah, it's really just slowing things down. The other thing, which I really, it's sort of like a real simple little acronym that you can sort of put in your everyday parenting toolkit when emotions happen or big meltdowns, is the acronym of HALT, which stands for hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. So when your little one might be having some big emotions or something's happening, if you can remember HALT and take a little pause and think, okay, you know, when we think about all behavior being communication, what is their behavior trying to communicate? Are they hungry? Okay, yeah, it's 9:30 and they haven't had breakfast yet. That's probably why there's some big emotions. Or it might be that they're tired. They're going through that phase where they're skipping their naps, which results in some big emotions. So it's just knowing that emotions are normal. Emotions are part of everyday life, and it's just becoming more comfortable with them, I suppose, in a nutshell.
And allowing them rather than trying to, as you say, like fix them. What we don't realize when we're doing that, we're actually suppressing them and not allowing them to fully be expressed. And as you'd probably be familiar with, if an emotion isn't expressed, it's like, well, where does it go? It's our body
Mm,
system. It gets stored in the body where it's not meant to stay. So yeah, I love that you brought that up about just allowing the emotion and then checking in with yourself, like what am I trying to do in response to that? And that acronym HALT, I reckon adults can use that as well. It's like, am I hungry?
yeah.
And going through.
Oh, 100%.
The other
Yeah.
one is, do you need to pee? Because that's another one. Like we put off doing like these basic things, and it could be something really simple that's actually the root cause of it. But as you say, if you're not having that initial recognition of your own trigger, then yeah,
Mm,
it can very quickly spiral from experience. I mean,
yeah.
definitely not perfect. Like if I need a pee and my child's like having a big emotion, I'm like, right, we just need to get past this so that I could go to the toilet, but with subconsciously. But when actually it's like, no, we're just going to let them be, and yeah, look after the basic functions as well.
Mm, yeah, for sure. And the cool thing is with really all of these teachings with emotional intelligence, it's the same for kids as it is for adults, you know, like some adults have gone through their whole life, you know, not acknowledging their emotions and suppressing them and pushing them down. And that results in, you know, a whole array of different things. So it's something, you know, that we don't get taught in school, which is a real shame, you know, because it's part of us. It's a huge part of life. And, you know, it's wonderful to be able to share it with kids because then we're also learning in the process as well. You know, I've learned so much about emotions since becoming a parent, and you know, through really simple, even books. You know, kids' books. I learn lots of different things while you know sharing that with my little 3-year-old. So it's cool. It's one of those wonderful things about becoming a parent. You know, you're just always learning new things.
It's the biggest initiation into self development, I reckon. Like they are
Mm.
such a reflection and a mirror of those unhealed parts of us or subconscious parts of us that we didn't even realize were in the driver's seat unnecessarily, that have been perhaps causing us a little bit of challenges in our life. So yeah, it's such an eye opener having children. I mean, I did a lot of self development, a lot of holistic life coaching, and my own healing, and the mindfulness, the meditation. And I was like, right, okay, like you know, trying to really get prepared, especially throughout my first pregnancy. And then along comes my first son. I'm like, oh, okay, we're going deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think you're spiritual, and then you have a child, and you're like, this is a whole nother level.
Yes, yeah, yeah. No, and they will take you to
Mm,
the depths that you haven't quite gone to yourself yet, for sure.
mm,
That's
definitely.
yeah, a really good segue into how we hear a lot about the self-regulation, but then there's co-regulation. So, can you help explain for our listeners why it's important for adults to first off have that self-regulation and have the tools before they can actually then support a child in regulating their emotions?
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of I sort of think about it. What comes to mind, like you know, if your child is angry, and if you're not feeling regulated, you're probably going to go in there and sort of add anger to anger. You're going to be like, why are you doing this? You know, just like you know, I see you're having a hard time, but I'm having a hard time seeing you have a hard time. And, you know, it's like adding fire to fire. You know, it just gets bigger and bigger. Um, so it's so important for us to be able to have our own regulation tools for us to be able to help support our kids. And you know, it is a practice. Like it's, as I said before, it's not something where we're you know, taught at school about emotions and how we can regulate ourselves. And some emotions feel really uncomfortable. Like I know when I was probably a year ago dealing with some big emotions with my little boy, I was feeling powerless for the first time, and it was like, oh yuck, this feels terrible. I don't like this feeling, and I had to really sit with it and just yeah, just allow that to be and for it to pass. And sometimes, you know, for us to self-regulate our own emotions, you know, it's different for everyone. It might be sitting with it, it might be journaling, it might be going for a walk, taking the dog for a walk, um, doing some yoga, going to the gym, whatever it is. But sometimes in the heat of the moment, you know, you can't go and do any of those things. I wish we could journal. So, you know, it's great if you can try to find little ways to sort of regulate and come back to center. You know, it might be through your breath. It might be going to grab a cold drink. It might be looking outside and seeing the blue sky and just seeing the bigger picture, sort of getting a bird's eye perspective on life. Something to just allow a little shift in perspective so then we can, handle whatever the emotion is, to sit with and regulate ourselves. Because if we're not regulated, we're not much help to anyone, especially our children. Um, a big part of that, though, just want to make note, is practice and patience. Because if we didn't learn how to regulate ourselves, you know, up until now, it's something that it's a skill to build on. It's a skill to, notice emotions, notice the feelings in the body, to sit with, to be with your breath, and find your own way to regulate and come back to your center. So it's like I kind of think about self-regulation. It's our own little compass. We've got the tool. We just need to find which direction we need to be pointing in.
I love that. That's such a good analogy because it's
Mm,
not one size fits all. And I love that you just mentioned so many different things that people can, trial and see what works for them, because you've got your overall long term things that you explained that we can be doing that all do pour in to inevitably help with that self regulation. And then you've got that in the moment, like, is there something that just I know is, and it might not be the same thing day to day, but when you're looking on that compass, it's like, okay, well, I can tune into that blue sky and like take 20 seconds to just zoom out and look at this as a
mm,
pin drop moment in the timeline of my life. Another one I really love, which I don't think I've mentioned on the podcast before, maybe. Anyway, um, is trying to just put yourself in the perspective of your future self in like 20 odd years' time, coming back to this
mm,
moment and visiting your child at this age that's now grown up, and just thinking, okay,
mm.
this is the only moment that I've got with them at this age. And it can just like melt everything away, just that shift in perspective. Um, but yeah, all those
100%.
practical things as well, like having a drink of water, splashing water on your face, taking deep breaths, or like the five senses game where what's something I can see, that I can touch, feel,
Mm,
smell, taste, all the things, grounding your energy, like having a quick check in. Where is my energy? Is it in my body? Am I here? Am I present? And that's really where
mm.
mindfulness can play, like, obviously it's the basis of your work. It plays such a huge role in emotional intelligence. um, are there any further ways that, or practical ways, I guess, that parents and teachers can bring mindfulness into their daily routines without it feeling like it's another task or another to do on their list?
Mm. I think, just keeping on that topic of perspective, it's almost like seeing emotions, um, and integrating mindfulness, but seeing it as an opportunity to connect with your child or the whoever's in your care, and it's taking that as an opportunity to connect with them and not a problem to fix.
Mm.
Instantly, that's a huge shift in how you'll show up to that. Um, it's I know for me, initially, whenever a big emotion would happen or a big meltdown, I'd always see it as like a problem to fix, and it never went down well because when we think about we're energetic beings and emotions are energy in motion,
Mm.
um, the energy that we bring to the present moment has a huge effect. And whether you are in tune with it or not, it has a distinct feeling, and kids really pick up on that feeling. So if we come in, like we want to come in and fix a problem, um, we can't really bring empathy. We can't truly tune into the present moment and fully be there. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things. Just the intention that we bring has a huge effect. And yeah, just really seeing emotions as opportunities to connect rather than problems to fix. I kind of remember the question, but hopefully that somewhat answers it.
Definitely covered it. I love the shift in perspective, instead of saying attention seeking, they're connection seeking. So in that moment
Mm.
when you are trying to practice that mindfulness, it's like, wow, I'm mindful here. Like it's being so aware. It all comes down to self-awareness, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And it's also, important to note that we don't have to do this 100% of the time. Sometimes we just don't have the capacity. And the goal really with this whole practice and emotion coaching is to do it 30 to 40% of the time. Because sometimes, we have our own stuff to deal with and we just don't have the capacity to have that mindset of, I'm going to see this as a opportunity. Sometimes we do just see it as a problem to fix. Okay, they're upset. They've spilt their breakfast all over the floor. There's milk everywhere. We've got to get out of the door. I've got to drop, someone at the doctor's. Some days, it just you don't have that mindset. But when possible, that's the ideal mindset to have, if you can.
For sure. Like that, I think it's Winnicott had that research where it's like if you are 30 to 50% of the time, responding in an emotionally intelligent way, your child is going to be all good. Like they are going to be,
Mm.
what's the word? Resilient. There we go.
Yeah, yeah.
Just dropped in. There we go. Yeah, so it's about having that self compassion when things aren't perfect, because we aren't perfect. We're not meant to be perfect. How are children
Mm.
going to have the space to also do their own learning if there isn't that little bit of contrast in their lives as well? Like in a perfect world where we're all perfect, everything's fine. Like we're here to feel those array of emotions, and just really have self compassion when we don't get it spot on, because yeah, it's the reality, especially when you are creating space and holding big emotions, not only your own but of either your own children or children in your care. It can get very tiring. It can get quite exhausting,
Mm.
which then is like adds another layer on. So yeah, that was a really great reminder.
Yeah, and that is a really good point because everyone has a different capacity to hold space, and especially when you're just getting into the practice of becoming aware of emotions and maybe dabbling with noticing emotions and naming emotions and sort of trying to get into that space to be an emotion coach for your child. You're literally rewiring your brain to how you respond to a situation, so it can actually be quite tiring because you're in the start you're really having to think about, okay, what's the emotion, what am I seeing here, and then it does become second nature.
Mm.
But it's still a lot to hold, to really sit with and just have patience and to hold space. I do find it actually quite tiring. If my little boy's had a massive meltdown, I'm often quite tired afterwards,
Mm.
just from that 100% presence, from 100% empathy. It can be a lot to hold. So it's also important to know that. And sometimes, if you've got the space and you've got another, parent or caregiver at home, it might be like, hey, I'm going to go take a little 5 minute walk, or I'm just going to go just sit by myself and have a cup of tea for 10 minutes afterwards. It's important to, again, tune in with our own needs, while we're supporting our kids as well.
Yeah, I found that again in early motherhood. It's like you are trying your best, but I had to learn very quickly it's okay to tap out and to actually work as a team. And same with early childhood teachers, knowing when you do just need to take 5 minutes to breathe, to ground, to have a drink of water, just to come back to center. Because, yeah, really just honoring the fact that you are like literally rewiring your subconscious beliefs, which take up 95% of our belief system, our thoughts. So it's
Mm.
it's important work, but it's not easy. And I think, yeah, really acknowledging that people on this journey that are really trying to make a change, like you are making a huge change for the future generations and for yourself and for your own healing. Like it's really big.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. And I always think, the early childhood teachers are just so wonderful, that they have, I feel like it takes a special person, to be able to be around kids all day who are throwing big emotions and feelings. And, it's such a huge job, to look after and care for a number of children, and hold space when possible for their feelings and emotions. It's amazing. I've always got so much respect and appreciation for all early childhood teachers, but particularly, where my little boy goes, they're just, so kind and caring. And I'm always just in awe of just like, oh my God, I could never do what you do.
Yeah, yeah. No, I for 10 years I was in the field mainly with under twos as well.
Mm,
It ended up taking its toll, because I did not have all of these tools. It's like, this is what I wish I had back then, and possibly my
mm,
career in early childhood on the floor would have lasted a bit longer. But again, no regrets,
mm,
because it got to me where I am right now and actually bringing this to the world of the conscious early learning movement. But yeah, it's really, I think, early childhood teachers that are listening to this, you are amazing. And I think you need way more acknowledgement. I actually shared today how, psychologists and social workers, they get those supervision sessions to debrief and to work through all of
mm,
these kind of things that we're talking about. But the early childhood teachers really don't get that same level of support that I think really is necessary, because it's a high energetic load on top of that, because it's not necessarily a natural dynamic to have that amount of the ratio. So like you could have,
mm.
legally you could have, what, 30 over twos with three teachers, 1 to 10. Like I think that's the legal limit. It might be 1 to 8 now. No, I could be wrong, but it's been a few
I think
years
it's
I've been
one
out of
to
the game.
10.
Yeah.
And that's crazy because
Mm.
as soon as one person takes a 10-minute break, it's like, oh my God, you've got, 15 kids to keep an eye on, which is insane.
Yeah, and that's where it can become a bit of crowd control, and it's, yeah. So kudos to the early childhood teachers listening. We see you, we appreciate you,
Mm,
you're doing amazing.
yes,
um,
definitely.
do you have any further advice for parents or teachers who may be struggling with their own emotional reactions, when, I know we've covered this quite a lot, but if there's anything other that you wanted to add, but when they're actually in the middle of having that meltdown, is there ways that they can respond?
Mm. I think it goes back to really that patience and practice,
Hmm.
because the more you're exposed to that, you're going to be building your own resilience to those situations. I know for me, it's taken, um, you know, since I kind of got into this work, let's just say sort of a year ago, specifically into emotionally intelligent parenting, I know my capacity has changed a lot over that year to to really sort of hold space. And I really did struggle before that because I just want to fix it. I just want it to go away. I didn't want to see my little boy sad or angry. And it has really taken patience and practice. And I think, just always reminding yourself like you're doing the best you can on any given day, and it's that 30 to 40%. Some days you'll, you might think, okay, I'm going to practice this. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to take a breath, and then hold space for that emotion. And other days it might just not, it just won't happen that way. So I think there's also a lot of like, there's practical ways we can if you're really struggling, which I know a lot of people do, because again, I struggle too. I think it's just not rushing. It's just slowing things down. So often we just want quick fixes for things because we're used to things happening quickly. And our kids really remind us to, that we have to slow down, that they are 100% in the present moment. And, we kind of sometimes have, okay, you can have a meltdown for 5 minutes, but if it's any longer than that, we just got to get on with our day.
Mm.
Um, we, sometimes have these preconceived ideas of like how long things should take. And I think sometimes that's the biggest struggle, just allowing that time and space and patience.
Mm.
And I know when I've tried to just hold space but slightly rush my little boy through an emotion, it's backfired. And rather than, I kind of, one day when my husband went away for the first time overnight and he went camping and everything was fine. My little boy was happy as, and we were having a great mummy and Reuben time. And then the next day we had a video call with my husband, and that, really triggered my little guy because, he saw daddy, daddy's not here. Daddy was off camping, having fun, and Reuben wasn't there. He wasn't invited as such. And so he had a really, really big reaction to that. And he was so sad, but so angry as well. And, doing what I do, of course, I held space and we did all the things. I kind of, we got him back to a place of being calm and regulated. But I sort of rushed the process because I was like, oh, I don't want this to ruin my whole day. Because we'd had plans to go to the zoo and we're going to have a really fun day. So I was like, oh, come on, like surely 20 minutes, half an hour is enough to process this. And let's just get on with our day at the zoo. But because I rushed it, I didn't allow that full expression to happen. I didn't allow that full, anger to come out and be released and maybe just allow him to sit with it a bit longer. It just kept coming up throughout the day. And that's what emotions do. If we don't allow them to move through us, again, energy and emotion, it's still going to be sitting there and it wants to come out. It wants to move through. That's what emotions do. And I think everyone needs to also, have those trials and errors, and you learn like, okay, yeah, maybe I really need to just allow them to have their own emotions to go for as long as they need to, and that was, again, we have ideas of like, okay, I see you're sad, but come on, let's go to the zoo. We had a fun day planned. Sometimes it's just, it's mindfulness. It's surrendering to the present moment. And that present moment, what was needed was not going anywhere. It was actually just allowing that complete time and space for him to process the emotion. Because we had a terrible time at the zoo. It was terrible because it kept coming up. So that
Yes.
was a good learning for me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I can totally relate to that as well. And it's, yeah, all coming back to, I think, a great reminder because in those situations where, especially if it's prolonged, if the
Mm,
child is really going through the motions and the emotions are expressed in a very loud and out there way, it's quite helpful as well to have like a really simple mantra like, I am safe. This is a moment in time. Like it is
mm,
safe for him to be expressing himself, or like, yeah, just kind of anchoring in that safety in the body when you're in possibly going to pick up energetically on their fight or flight response. And
mm,
this probably isn't spoken about mainstream as such. Well, maybe a little bit more now, but our own energetic hygiene. So are you grounded? Like, can you visualize your tree roots going down to the earth? Have you got a bubble of protection, of energetic protection, so that you're not then absorbing things that then might come out within your energetic field, or even
mm,
having, after having a long day where it kept on coming up in the evening, having a shower and just imagining that as well, being like an energetic cleanse. So I think that's another thing that those who are open to this
Mm,
more woo woo side. I don't think it's woo woo. I think it's also quantum physics and energetics and science
mm.
as well. But yeah, yeah, having those anchor points as well as that energetic awareness that goes with it.
Yeah, it's a really good point actually, because you probably don't know this about me, but I do Reiki and
Oh, right.
energy healing, and I don't practice it much anymore. But when you think about, at the end of the day, like everything is energy,
Mm,
and we're energetic beings, and it rubs off on other people. It's I think for any skeptics, I always kind of like to think, when someone's in a good mood, you feel their energy, you feel their good mood. You're like, you want to be around them. You're like, yes, yeah, I'm vibing. This is great. But it's the same when someone's in a bad mood. It can easily just, rub off and hop into our energetic body. So it's, yeah, I think it's a good point, and it's, yeah, we'll probably won't go onto any more about that because that's a whole nother tangent. But it's a good point to be made.
it's a great
Like
tangent.
that we are energetic beings, and like yeah, like you said, having that cold shower or just sometimes at the end of the day, if I do a little meditation, it might be just calling all my energy back in, because
Mm,
sometimes it feels like we get so scattered, and we're trying to help here and we're doing this there and we're planning for the future and we're whatever we're doing, and there's so much energy going in places. It can be quite a powerful thing to actually just draw all your energy back in.
mm,
Yeah, coming fully back to your body and grounding.
yeah.
Mm.
And quite often that can be when we're feeling dysregulated. That's a really quick check-in that you can do and be like, am I seeing, like, even visualizing the threads kind of untangling themselves from different, like if you're running different programs, like you've got all these mental tabs open. It's like, oh, you're thinking about this project, or you're thinking about this place, or you're thinking about this person. It's like, well, those are all energetic threads that are actually connected
Mm.
outside of your body. So calling them all back in, that's like such a powerful reminder as well. Yeah, thank you for that.
Mm. Hmm.
In terms of your work and seeing, could you possibly give like an example of a powerful transformation that you've seen with a family after implement? Sorry, let me just clear my throat. I'll try that one again. Could you please share a story or an example about a powerful transformation that you've seen with a family after they have been implementing some of the work that you teach in terms of emotional intelligence and these practices?
Mm. I think there's so many. The I've been teaching this um, for yeah, maybe like 6 months now. But the most recent group I've been working with, I've just started their 6 week course a couple of weeks ago, and a few of them live here in Raglan, where I'm based.
Oh, cool.
And it's been really cool just to bump into them and get a little bit of feedback. And it's just the simple things. I don't. It's kind of profound, but it's also super simple. Like I know one of the mums said, "Oh my god, I'm so glad. I'm doing this course. Just the next night after we talk about holding space for big feelings, and that we don't have to try to rush in and fix it. She was able just to. Sorry, now I've got the tickle. She was able to just allow her little 2-year-old to miss his dad, because his dad had gone away for work and it was just him and mum at home, and he was having some big emotions. And she said when she was able just to hold space and just acknowledge the feelings, like, yeah, I can see you're really missing dada right now. And just naming them to tame them, it really, changed the whole evening. It changed the whole energetic dynamic of it, because we're so intertwined. And when we're trying to sort of fix something, it's stressful for us, it's stressful for our child. It doesn't really get us very far.
Mm,
So there's sort of a saying like, without acknowledging feelings first, you won't get far. So when you can acknowledge feelings, then you can start to make progress. And maybe the transformation that night was just going to sleep. That they were able to have that moment before bedtime, and cuddle, and that he was seen and heard with his feelings and emotions, and they could just have that time together, to sit with them. Like, another one, again, just the other day, it comes to mind. One of the mums in the group, she's got two girls, quite young, I think 2 and 4. And she was saying how they're often in another room playing together, but then you'll hear them screaming and something will happen, and she'll come running in, and the older one's knocked over the little one's tower. And she said so many times she'd sort of come in, try to save it, try to fix it, quickly rebuild the tower. Oh, you're upset. Here, let me rebuild the tower. And it would happen, again and again, day after day. And she said after, I think it was on the first week of the course, she said, she started to implement emotion coaching, and coming into the room, not trying to fix it straight away, but just seeing it as an opportunity, and, naming the feelings, noticing, naming the feelings. And then she said it completely changed, completely changed the game.
mm,
Her older one could then, understand and recognize, oh, okay, her little sister was feeling this way because of the tower tumbling down. And then, rather than going in and saying, let's fix this together, she asked her older girl, what could we do? How could we
mm,
work together and sort this out? And her 4-year-old could then use her emotional intelligence and her innate empathy and say, oh,
mm,
why don't we rebuild it together? And then everyone's winning.
mm,
um,
mm.
and yeah, it's just little things like that that completely can change everyday life. And that's the real transformation, because when you're parenting, it's the everyday things that keep happening, and it keeps wearing you down, because
Mm.
it's exhausting trying to save and fix everything all the time. But
Yeah.
when we can just empower our children, and teach them emotional intelligence along the way, it's wonderful, because then they can start to understand and recognize their own feelings, other people's feelings and emotions. And they're also empowered to come up with solutions for themselves. We're not saying, that was really mean what you did, knocking over her tower, rebuild it right now.
Mm.
We're empowering them. We're teaching them a really, really wonderful set of skills.
Yeah. That's such a beautiful example in how it's yeah, like you said, teaching that problem solving for them, not to wait to be saved as well. So yeah, how they can all work together in
Mm,
a way that actually empowers rather than, you know, punishment, talking down on the child that made the mistake. It's like actually they are recognizing just through you name to tame, recognizing that, oh, okay, action, reaction. So there's lots of other concepts that
mm.
come into play with just such a simple shift. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And when we think about, every single thing we do and say, and how we act, our children are literally just soaking that all up. They're learning from everything we do and say, like every action, they're noticing it. Every way we communicate, they're taking notice, and it's literally wiring their brain. So the more that we can get in the practice of emotion coaching, they're going to be picking it up. You don't even have to, specifically, teach them about it. Just through you role modeling, it's a huge teacher. And sometimes we don't get it right, and it's also saying, "Mummy didn't handle that very well today. I was feeling a bit overwhelmed. I'm sorry that I came in and maybe yelled at you." It's also being able to acknowledge that we don't always get it right, and
mm,
that we can repair.
yes. so important to have that repair. And so if we're talking about the 30 to 50, like if you get really good at repairing for that 70 to 50%, um,
Mm,
it's going to show that we are human, and that even as you grow up, it's okay to have emotions. Even as you grow up, it's okay to experience things that aren't perfect. And I think when, old school parenting, it was very much like your high expectations to get things right. And yeah, just
mm,
like you said, through modeling that repair and saying, hey, so I quite often, if I have snapped or something at my toddler, I'll say to him, look, sorry, mummy snapped at you. I shouldn't have spoken to you that way. Or um, if it's something where it's like quite triggering, but also something behavioral that he knows he should not have done, I'll kind of talk
mm,
about it, and I'll say, oh, how do you think I could have dealt with that better? And he could say, well, you don't talk to like that to me, mummy. And I say, yeah, no, that's a great way to think about it. I won't speak to you like that. And so next time, instead of pushing your sister, what do you think we could do? And then he'll come up with his solution, and he'll be like, well, I could be more gentle, or I could give her a toy instead of snatching it off her, or whatever the situation is. It's like taking
mm,
time outside of the moment, definitely not in the moment
mm,
where things are heightened, um, to talk about their behavioral stuff. But yeah, obviously, like if it's in the moment, you're snatched, like, oh, sorry, like I'm feeling overwhelmed. That didn't mean to come out that way. So yeah, um,
mm.
yeah, all about the repair because we're not perfect,
Yes, yeah,
but we
yeah.
can we can we can own up to our things. Ownership's like a huge part of it, I think, as well. That with that awareness,
Mm,
emotional intelligence.
yeah, for sure. Particularly like in relationships too, when you think about parenting and it adds so many like stress levels on relationships. And, if you can, get into that habit of starting to, notice emotions and, where sometimes things just come out, doesn't come out right, or we snap. It's a really wonderful thing, to be able to do with your partner as well, or anyone, a friend, or anyone who's at home. Because then, our children will be seeing that as well when we
Mm,
model, saying, yeah, just acknowledging that we're not always getting it right.
mm,
And our kids pick up on those things as well. So I know me and my partner are always, trying to recognize emotions and, hold space for each other and empathize. But, even for me, when I'm doing this work a lot, um, sometimes when you're at home, oh, it's the end of the day, you're tired, you're like, oh, like I'm just not in the mood. I can't. I just need to just, you know, um, not be in that part of my brain at the moment. And sometimes, then we'll come back and say, oh look, I saw that you were disappointed or whatever it is. Sorry, I just didn't have the capacity to,
mm,
hold space for that, or even have a conversation about it.
mm,
I think just knowing that, yeah, it's just a practice, and it's not one we always get right. But the more you can practice it, the more second nature it becomes. And it's kind of like, sometimes in the start, trying a new pair of shoes on, like, oh, walking around noticing emotions. Okay, this is different. It feels a bit different. But over time, you're like, oh, this, starts to feel more comfortable, starts to feel more normal. And then you're off and running because it's become second nature.
mm,
And some people pick it up really quickly. Like one of the guys who did my 6-week course, I checked in with him just recently and asked him how it was all going, and he said, "Yeah, I don't even have to think about it anymore. I just do it." And I was
mm.
like, "That's amazing. That's the ultimate goal, for it to become second
Exactly.
nature." And for him to have done that in just such a short time is pretty amazing. Some people pick it up real quick, and other people, it might take a year or more.
Mm,
But just being patient. And I think no matter where you start, there's just little threads you can start to weave in. There's little seeds you can start to plant, and it doesn't have to be sort of a radical overnight shift.
Mm. Like you said, it's a practice, and the clue is in the title. Like it's something that's why like these tools are called practices. Yeah, because it's something
Mm,
that is requires you to literally rewire your brain, which um, it can take up to 400 repetitions to do something in a certain way. But that's where play is a really good thing, because part of that statistic, actually 10 to 20 repetitions through play can also
mm,
rewire your brain. So approaching this
mm,
from like a playful kind of way of being and way of doing is another really great tip.
mm.
Yeah. Is there
Yeah, that can be a really good one for parents as well. Bringing in that play, and sometimes it can be bringing in the teddy bears um, to help, or it might be not necessarily play, but like things like this, like how do I feel? Having a little toolkit to sit down with your child and look at emotions. Yeah, this is a really great book, How Do I Feel? And it comes in a little card deck as well, where you can actually, learn together through, playing or that time of connection, learning about emotions. And yeah, it's one of those things that becomes a real joy to do with your child, because you're both learning, you're both growing, and it's through a nice little moment of connection.
We can put those in the show notes as well, the how do I feel. And
Yeah, that'd be
who's
great.
the author?
Rebecca Lip.
Mm, awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to look into that too, because that looks like a really great
Mm.
resource to have.
Mm.
Yeah. So, for those who are wanting to start at the very beginning of their integration of emotional intelligence into, say, their parenting or their teaching, and they're wanting just one simple, actionable step that they can do right now, what would that? we've spoken a whole array. Like just before we kind of wrap this up, what's the one actionable step that you would recommend? Like where to begin?
Mm. Well, the good thing is it's very simple. It's
Mm.
just start noticing.
Yeah.
Just start noticing emotions, and just becoming aware of emotions and seeing them as daily opportunities. And
Mm.
once you start, tuning into something and seeing it, you start to see, wow, they're always there, they're always present. When you start to yeah, just notice them, and you might not even change the way you parent, or if you're a caregiver, but you might just notice
Mm.
there's a lot more emotions present than I ever thought. Or it might be that while noticing, you just start to notice your automatic reactions to emotions.
Mm.
That's really a big one, because when we start to notice what we do when we're on autopilot, that's when we start to have a wonderful opportunity to change the way we do things if we want to.
Mm.
Just by noticing, that's always the first step: becoming aware, noticing. And when I run a 6 week program, that's what week one is about. Just
Mm.
notice. You don't have to try to implement all the tools and the teachings, but when you start to notice, you might just start to notice opportunities where you could. And by noticing and becoming present to what's happening in front of you, that leads to curiosity. And curiosity, leads to an open mind. And an open mind leads to learning new things and, wanting to learn more, because you might start to see, wow, I think this could really make a big difference. Even just noticing it in yourself is a wonderful thing, just to notice your own emotions, and
Mm.
then for your kids as well.
Oh, that's I love that. How it's like just the first domino, but what a difference and what a change it can make, not only to your life,
Mm,
but to the children in your care or your own children as a parent. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it really, really is that domino effect, and it's just so simple. Like
Mm.
sometimes that's the funny thing. It's so simple, but we have to remember to remember, because
Yeah.
life gets busy. And you're like, oh, okay, simple. I'm going to start noticing the emotions. But,
Mhm.
you know, you also then have to cook dinner and probably clean up the house and do the washing. And there's so many things. So it might be just putting it on a post-it and sticking it in a few places, like notice emotions.
Yeah.
Um, something simple like that. That's just a little re- reminder to remember.
Mm,
Because that's often the most, often the most life-changing things are the most simple,
yes.
but they're so simple that we forget to do them.
Too simple.
Mm,
Mm,
yeah.
no,
So
that's
yeah, just start
amazing.
noticing.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, I just wish this was more common knowledge. So this is why we're here. This is why we're doing it. That's why we're in the field of work that we both are. So you are doing amazing, amazing work in the world, changing lives, and it's just so
Mm.
amazing to be a witness to it and to learn more about your work. So if our listeners are wanting to get in touch with you, possibly do your 6-week course or work with you in another capacity, what are, say, your offerings and where can they find you?
Yeah. Well, I think probably the first thing I try to share simple, actionable things on Instagram. So that's probably the first place to find me. So at joyful.collective.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you can sort of get little tips and tricks where you might like to, have a little peek, see if it resonates. And I'm pretty terrible at keeping our website up to date with what's happening. So I usually quickly pop on there whenever I've got an upcoming course. But usually Instagram's probably the way where I promote most of the upcoming things.
Hmm.
But yeah, sorry, joyfulcollective.co.nz is our website, which may or may not have the most relevant information. So
Instagram's the go-to, but
Instagram's the go-to because look, I'm a mum and I only
mm,
have 2 days a week when my little boy's in childcare,
yeah,
and doing website updates doesn't usually happen during that time. So yeah,
priorities.
but no, the 6-week course is something I run throughout the year. Um, and yeah, it's a really, really wonderful course to do to connect with other parents as well.
Mm,
Because I think one of the main things that come out of the course is when you're parenting, you kind of feel like you're doing it alone. Like you're the only one having these challenges and you're the only one just feeling, absolutely hopeless to handle emotions. But when a group of parents come together to do the course, which is all run online, it's kind of instant, connection. We're all in this together.
mm,
Everyone learns from everyone's stories, and it's always a really supportive kind of small group environment.
nice.
And I know that was when I first was a participant on the course with my teacher. It was just such a wonderful thing to do every week to connect with other parents because when you go out for a coffee with other parents, you never talk about this stuff. You're just like, oh
Mm,
yeah, life's busy. This is what we did on the weekend. Yeah, my little boys, now speaking Spanish. That's cool. You kind of just you're doing the highlight reel.
yeah,
But it's nice to get parents together to just actually talk about the challenges and to learn
mm,
and grow together. Yeah, it's really nice.
yeah. Sounds really supportive, and yeah, for our listeners, go and check out Danica. And I'll put all of
Mm,
that in our show notes as well, just so that people can just, when they finish listening, go down, click, and take you straight to your page. Um,
cool.
yeah, is there any final little things that you want to say, or do you reckon we've kind of covered it?
Hmm. Um, I think the only thing would be that all emotions are okay. All emotions are acceptable, and as soon as you can start to get um, understand that, then you can start to sort of accept the present moment. But one point is that so where all emotions are acceptable and okay, not all behavior is. So
Mm,
part of this emotional intelligence is also helping our kids to be able to express emotions appropriately, and we give that guidance. So my little boy can get very angry and want to bite and kick things and punch things. And so something that I say to him is, I can see you're angry. I can see you're really upset right now. I can't let you hit me. I
Mm-hmm.
can't let you bite me. And it's grabbing that hand and holding that boundary. So while we hold space for emotions, we also hold a boundary.
Mm.
And that's really important. Even having things like house house values or house rules where it's something you can keep coming back to. In our home, we don't allow hitting. We don't allow biting. I can see you're really upset and angry with me or with whatever's happened, but I can't let you hit me. And what you can try to do is redirect. If they're wanting to run or they're wanting to hit something, it might be giving them a pillow and saying, you can hit this pillow. Or if you feel like you want to, bite something, here's an apple you can bite into. Or, my little boy often wants to sort of run away. He wants to leave the property. And so I'll say to him, I can see you want to run away, but I can't let you, walk out the gate because that's our driveway and it's dangerous. So I try to, redirect him wanting to move with, let's walk around the garden, or just trying to allow their natural instinct of what they want to do to come through, but to give them guidance, to do it safely and to do it appropriately. That's not causing any harm to you or anyone else.
That is such a good point to end on with, like, yes, all emotions are okay, but not all behaviors. And that's something that I've it's a continuous work in progress practice of, yeah, that redirection. So it's actually got to the point, it's really cool to see it reflected back and that it's actually working. So if
Mm,
my son, say, instead of he wants to like hit me, he'll stomp his feet to get the energy out. He's like, I just need to get my emotions out, and he'll start stomping his feet, or he'll start like hitting the couch or something. And I'm like, that is that is what we want. I'm like, that's great. I said, like, let's get that emotion out, because I can see that you're angry, and it's okay to stomp your feet. It's okay to feel angry. But if he was to actually hit me again, no, it's not okay to hit. Or even my 16-month-old, she's getting a bit pushy with him. So
mm,
we'll redirect and like, oh no, you can push this or kick the ball or whatever it is, but then always reminding to be gentle. So she'll push him in order to then go and rub his head and say gentle. Like, you can skip the push and just go straight to the gentle. If you want to uppy him, if you want to hug him, it's okay. But yeah.
mm,
So having that's a really good point to make as well about the boundaries. And our children thrive off boundaries as much as
mm.
there's this idea that gentle parenting is falls into the category of permissive parenting, where you let them, quote unquote, get away with things. Yeah, it's that having that tangible redirection of where they can direct that energy and that behaviour as such.
Mm. Yeah. And just going back to that book that I mentioned, How Do I Feel? It's because sometimes in those moments, if you don't have a good understanding of emotional intelligence and how to handle emotions, you can be sort of a little bit lost as to what to do. And it actually has 65 different emotions and feelings in there. And it gives them a picture and an explanation, and how this emotion might feel in your body, but also how
Mm.
to ways you might want to process it. And
Oh, cool.
when my little boy was 2, if he was feeling really angry, one day he actually just ran and got that book, and he said, where's the anger page? And we found it, and he said, read it to me. And it only just started talking.
Wow.
But he, could say, read it to me. And, I read it out to him, and it was like, such a beautiful way to educate but hold space,
Mm.
and like, yeah, this is what we could do when you're angry. I wouldn't have thought of that. And then you can also give them some ideas about ways to process anger or sadness. So yeah, it's a really, really wonderful book. I really think it's sort of an essential in every family.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. And then having that, especially if you're in that place of dysregulation yourself, it's a good tool for you to be like, okay, like I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm picking up on this anger or this emotion. Okay, just give me my guide. Show me what I can do when you're not in that rational brain. Obviously, like when you're in a fight or flight, you've gone out of logic and you're into
Mm.
emotion where you're not always able to come up with those ideas when you're feeling the feels.
For sure, yeah, and I think going back to the struggles. Sometimes that is one of the biggest struggles. You're just like, I don't know what to do in this situation. So having a tool where you can sort of name it to tame it, it
Mm,
instantly changes the level of intensity of the emotion.
mm,
So it's yeah, there's so many sort of tools in one with that.
yeah. Okay. Well, I know what I'm going to go buy after this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll send you the link.
Yes, please. Yeah, and I'll check it in the show notes. But oh, so many golden nuggets. That was such a great chat. Thank you for coming on and being on our podcast.
Pleasure. It was lovely. Lovely to chat with you.
Yeah, and yeah, no doubt we will cross paths again and might have a round two.
Yeah, yeah, I hope so.
Oh, thank you, Danica.
No worries, Sarah. Take care and talk to you again soon.